Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. This is our free motion quilting beginner series, and we are on day 3 of tutorials and our third tutorial on how to use the Stipple Meander. We started off showing you how to use it as an all-over design using a stencil to sort of help you build that muscle memory and get the stitch down. Then we worked on changing scale so that way you can use it to sort of dress up your quilts and make it more versatile for you. And today we're going to specifically focus on using it as a background filler and how to work around your block when you're doing that and it's not an all-over design. I really love this series because I know that all of us really want to finish more quilts at home, and this series is going to show you not only how to do it on your home sewing machine but also on your long arm, and I'm going to be doing it in both ways so you guys can watch that. So that's really awesome. And also this is just really kind of fun because we're going to go through, we're going to build our quilting repertoire, and I'm going to show you how you can take 4 basic quilting stitches, combine them in an endless number of ways to really make your quilts fantastic without always having to send it to the long armor, because I know that can get expensive. All right. And also we've got quilt kits available so you can get a nice solid fabric so that way you're not getting distracted by your prints. You can just focus on your quilting stitches and your stitch length and all of that good stuff. All right, let's get started with today's lesson. Scratch paper is just fine for this, but you can always use a dry erase board. I think they're really versatile because then you don't have to worry so much about erasing and wasting paper. You can just wipe it clean and practice as many times as you want. All right, so I'm drawing myself a 16 patch here. We're going to create a star block that we also will transfer over to our block that we're working on. And this is just going to be a really simple star. We're just going to have our points come in like that and give ourselves some guides there. All right, so we got a really basic star. There's a 4 patch in the center, some half square triangles around. Really common quilt pattern. So I really love doing my background filler smaller because it helps my insides pop. And we are going to be filling the inside in later, so make sure you save this square. We're going to be doing it with another stitch in a little bit. So for this, I'm not doing it to scale because this is not as wide as my actual block is. But what I'm going to do right here is use this as a way to practice working my way around, because that is really important, your path, because it's really easy to like maybe do this and then you're like, okay, but how do I get out to the next thing? Because maybe you like back yourself into a weird corner, and this will just help you learn to work your way around. All right, so my goal is going to be to transfer in between all of these triangles. So I'm going to try to work my way all the way around so that way I can always just quilt right over the tip of that triangle, work my way around, quilt over the tip. So I'm going to start in the corner and we're just going to do our little meander and filling in the block and then get myself back out here. Now these you can kind of treat as one because in the real block the background fabric would be the same. So we're going to treat it as one. Now transfer again. Now we're going to work our way around, maybe work our way up and back a little bit, but always make sure you're coming back to that point so that way you can get yourself back where you need to go. And you want it to be as random as you can. Whenever you like keep going the same way with each block, that's when it kind of starts to get boring and repetitive. You want to kind of mix it up, make it look human. Obviously I crossed over there, we weren't supposed to do that. The goal is still to make everything nice and curvy, but no points and no crossing over lines. All right, so I made it all the way around. I was able to get where I needed to go, always transferred at those points. And if you were doing this for real, no one would be able to tell that you were transferring at the points unless they looked really closely. All right, I'm going to draw this out on my actual block, and then I'm going to go off camera again and use the walking foot to stitch that down so you guys can see it a little better, and then we're going to start stitching. All right, so our blocks are 10.5 inches. So I know that I can mark my center line at 5 1/4. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 2.5 inches over from there. So I'm going to line my 2.5 inch line on the mark I just lined. And then when I stitch in my 1/4 inch seam later, I'm going to have a nice evenly divided section to work with. All right, now we're gonna do the same thing, going the other direction. Now here's one little tip. When you're piecing this, the extra 1/4 inch on the side is always going to be eaten up in the seam allowance. So before you start drawing your dots, I would highly recommend, or your diagonal squares, just marking the 1/4 inch on those outside pieces so you know where to start and stop those triangles. All right, now I can mark from where that little hash mark is to the center to create all of my triangles. This is great because we get to draw our block instead of piece it. All right, I've stitched around the outside of our block with white thread, so it's going to be really easy for you guys to see. Now we're going to work around, just working around and planning our path so that we don't quilt ourselves into a corner. We're going to start all these videos by pulling our bobbin thread to the top so we don't have a thread nest at the bottom. All right, get my path going here. Remember, I want to be nice and tiny here. Work my way down a little bit. Remember, my goal is to get back to that corner. So I'm kind of just filling in this bottom here. That way I don't get down to the corner and then realize, crap, I gotta get back there. That's no good. All right, so I'm coming up now. My goal is to get back down so that it looks like I filled it in really evenly and deliberately to come out right at that corner. So you see how I did that? I worked all the way around so that when I was done, I had already filled in everything and I'm ready to move to the next section. Now you can treat these two sections as one because that's how you would do it in a real quilt. It would look like the same fabric for your background. Remember, we got to try, oops, shoot, we ran out of bobbin, but this is good because I can show you how to change it out. All right, so we can see where my bobbin thread came out and there was where my top thread where I clipped it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a couple stitches back and I'm just going to lower that top needle right on that stitching line, and then I'm going to pull that bobbin thread to the top. All right, now I'm going to get right over that exact same spot, put my needle right back down in there. I'm going to stitch in places a couple of times. Now that is enough to knot your threads together. They are not coming out. You can feel free to clip those threads when you're done. If you're doing this for a show quilt, bury the threads, but most of the time you can just get away with clipping it and it'll be fine. All right, now I'm gonna try my best to follow that line that I had there. Kind of go a little slower when I do that. All right, then we can work our way around. I'll come up a little bit. Try to get another loop or so in before I have to wiggle my way out to that corner. All right, same deal. I want to fill this in, not be too predictable about it, but at the end of the day, I need to make it to where the next corner is. So maybe we'll come into the corner here, come down a little bit, work our way around. That's why I just kind of have to fill in that bottom so I can get to the next section of the block. Come up and fill in here some. Not at that point. I love when I've got points like this to just fill all the way in. It's really easy to forget about them, and then you got to figure out how to make your way in. Now I went all the way up the side there, so I want to kind of mix it up a little bit. Go side to side a little bit so it doesn't look super predictable. Get that corner before we forget about it at that point. I don't want to go up any higher than this because I want to be able to work my way back out eventually. And that loop was a little too big for the scale I'm going for. So I'm going to try and keep it a little closer and tighter. Let's come down and fill her in. Bring her back up and over. And right down there, wiggle my way out. All right, so here we have it. We have our Stipple Meander background filler. When we learn our next stitching design, we're going to fill in the center. So make sure you save this block. Obviously, you're going to save this block if you're doing the quilt as you go with us. But it's really fun and it's really cute and it's a little puffy right now on the center, but it won't be once that's quilted down as well. It'll look nice and even and beautiful. So you can see that this is really a versatile stitch. A lot of times when we think of Stipple Meander, we think of this big all over design, and that's a great use for it. If you want to just get a quilt done fast, you can use this. You can play with the scale. I would caution against just going with the big wide open Stipple Meander because it just doesn't look great over time. You spent a lot of time and money on the top. Let's spend a little bit of time quilting it too. This is a good scale, especially if you're working on your home sewing machine, because you just don't have the same range of movement that you do with a long arm. With the long arm, you can go open it up bigger, easier, and have it look nice. And then remember, we can always play with the scale to create different densities, different looks. So this one is a little bit on the smaller side on the outsides. Obviously, we've got it bigger on the inside. Creates a different look. So depending on what you're going for, changing up that scale might be what you need to do in order to make that work. And then we can go even smaller to create that background texture that is really fun, especially if we go wider with whatever we pick for the center. The effect that it's going to create is it's going to sort of tamper down the background and make that block shine. So it's a really versatile stitch. You don't just have to do the all over meander that we kind of all think of, but you really can do a lot with it and really make your designs look very versatile. All right, next up, we're going to take a look at a little quilt show and tell. We're going to take a look at when I've used this, the reasons why I chose it, and what it looks like in the final quilt. So we're going to take a peek at that next, and then we're going to get on to a new stencil design that we're going to start in on next week.